And we finally come to the season finale of season 1 of The Mandalorian with my review series. This is, of course, episode 8 called Redemption. And this episode is directed by the voice of IG-11, Taika Waititi, and it shows. If you don't know who he is, he directed movies like Jojo Rabbit, Thor Ragnarok, What We Do in the Shadows, Hunt for the Wilder People. He has directed a bunch of movies. He's also acted in a bunch of movies, and if you know anything about him, you know he's quite comedic. Anyway, I will say at the end of this video, I also want to give my overall assessment for this season as a whole, because I definitely have some thoughts in that regard. So stay tuned for the end of the video. But first, let's just dive into this episode. So at the end of the previous episode, Grogu was snatched by 2 scout troopers who killed Quill. And at the beginning of this episode, that's where they start. They need to wait for a moment though, because Gideon is still doing whatever he's doing. So they're just waiting. And this entire opening sequence has Taika Waititi's footprint all over it. Like, there is a lot of comedy, a lot of dark comedy, because these troopers punch Grogu. This is like a cardinal sin. You can never recover from that. But the thing is, like, Taika has a sense of like irony, a sense of karma about it, where, you know, IG-11 punches them afterwards and that kills them. So it's like, okay, they may have punched Grogu, but they do get what was coming to them. But what's interesting is also noting who the actors are in the suits, because the scout troopers are played by Adam Pally and Jason Sudeikis. If you don't know those names, you might want to look them up. They are very much known for playing comedic roles in mostly TV, but also some movies, especially Sudeikis I've seen in a couple of movies, but I most know him as Ted Lasso, which is an overall comedic show. Adam Pally I know from a sitcom called Happy Endings, so it very much shows that these are actors known for comedic props, and that's why they were cast in this opening sequence, because they can deliver the dialogue the way that Taika Waititi wanted. So then we return to our main trio of Din, Cara, and Greef being trapped inside the building, and there's no way out. They try to sewer, but it's sealed shut. And that's when Gideon also reveals that he knows their names, their exact names, and that he knows who they are, their backstory, and it's like, okay, this shows even more that Gideon is a very smart cookie and is a very good villain for the show. In regards to the setup of him in the show, it's a perfect setup for him to come in with such a squad of troops, and he knows the names. He's like smart, calculated, perfect setup for a villain for the show. So in that regard, it's all good. How it continues, I'll get into later in the show, but for now, it was a really good setup, at least for Gideon, so that's cool. He actually also mentions the Night of 1,000 Tears, which initially when I first watched this episode, I didn't really know what he was talking about, but now having seen more of the show, and actually the Book of Boba Fett, I know exactly what he's talking about, because we actually see it in episode 5 of the Book of Boba Fett. And now we also know that Gideon was the one behind it. He's the reason that there is no more Mandalore. So, yeah, that makes a whole lot more sense that he references that. And looking back at it, it's like, oh, that's what it means. And this also opens up a bit of the backstory of Din, where he's like, no, I actually wasn't born on Mandalore. I was a foundling, which is more Mandalorian lore, and we're get into the entire foundling thing a bit later in the show, so I will talk about it more when we get to that. I think especially season 3 really delves into that, so for the moment I'm not going to talk too much about it. I just think it's a cool bit of lore added to the entire Mandalore thing, like what it means to be Mandalorian and how you can become Mandalorian even if you weren't born on Mandalore. But then IG-11 gets into town and gets to shooting all the imps, and this is where I kind of feel that the previous episode was done dirty in a sense. Like, the previous episode built up towards the epic confrontation, and it's like, no, IG-11 is just gonna come in and shoot it all up and it's gonna be okay. Like, even though this entire action sequence is very cool, and there are more layers to it because it's not as easy as some other movies and TV shows have it, where it's solved like this. So it's not as much an ex machina. It does feel a little bit like it cheapens the previous episode a little, and that's what I was complaining about with my previous review that, yeah, the entire previous episode builds up towards this moment, and it's like, oh no, we're just gonna take care of it like this. Okay, it still is a very cool action sequence, I will say that. And yeah, like IG-11 comes in, and then Din gets the E-Web, but Gideon blows Din up, like, okay, no problem, and Din gets badly hurt, and they get back into the building, and they still have a very difficult time getting out of there, despite the fact that IG-11 can actually open the sewer hatch. But Din is like, yeah, you gotta leave me behind. Also, Grogu has one of the most beautiful and amazing moments of, well, definitely this season, maybe of the entire show, when he uses the Force to save everyone against this flame trooper. It's like, that's beautiful. I love it. So this still is a very good sequence, I will say that. And then, of course, Din has to show his face. And this is one of the very few times that Pedro Pascal was actually in the suit. Yeah, this is something that people have complained about, and I think it's rightly so, that Pedro Pascal, in an interview, admitted that he's not in the suit as much and that it's mostly his stunt double. I'm like, Pedro Pascal, you are a fit enough actor. We've seen you done plenty of action roles where you're like in whatever kind of costume needing to do something. Why are you not in that suit? Simply because they don't see your face? I kind of feel that defeats the entire purpose of like you playing the role, because pretty much your stunt double is playing the role and you're just voicing it. Now, the thing is, Darth Vader had the same thing, but with Darth Vader, there actually was a bit more to it. There's actually a really funny joke in Family Guy about it, which is a bit insensitive, but it is funny, and I can't help but laugh about it. But the point is, you know, Pedro Pascal should be in the suit. I don't understand why he's not. At least he is in this scene, right? One of the few times that we actually see him being in the suit, so there's that. Anyway, when they get into the sewers, they find the armorer, and now we learn that the Mandalorians have been wiped out from the planet. I mean, most of them. Not all of them. Of course, the armorer is still there, and Paz is alive, and maybe a couple of others. But the point is, the armorer is here, and she's actually very crucial, because in just one scene, actually in one sentence, she sets up the entire second season by telling Din to look for Jedi. It's that simple. That's your entire second season. But she also gives him the long-awaited jetpack, which I think everyone was waiting for. I definitely was at the time. So that was cool. And then she also kicks all the ass. It's a really cool scene to see her in action. So short but sweet moment to have her in this episode. So the main group gets onto the boat, and then of course, IG-11 has to sacrifice himself to blow up the imps, and this is where Din gets emotional about it, and I personally don't feel this is warranted all that much. Like, Din has a lifelong hatred towards droids, and it gets solved by one droid who he has been against for most of the season. In the previous episode, episode 7, he was still pointing his blaster at IG-11 because he didn't like him. At the beginning of this episode, he suspected that IG-11 killed Quill. Like, it's a very quick change, actually. It doesn't make much sense to me that all of a sudden he trusts droids after spending years and years and years hating them. So, I'm not the biggest fan of this moment when Din all of a sudden is feeling sappy towards IG-11. It's like, just let him die. It's fine. So once IG-11 takes care of the stormtroopers, Gideon is still there in his tie, and this sequence of Gideon and Din fighting each other was very much classic Mandalorian fighting style, as we saw it in Rebels and Clone Wars sometimes, where Mandalorians will fly, and it doesn't even matter that the opposition has some kind of fighter or whatnot. They will just fly up to them, take care of them. That was really cool, really fun. I really enjoyed that sequence. And of course, at the end, Din wins. Din then lands with his jetpack very awkwardly because he's still not entirely used to it. And then he parts ways from Cara and Greef, who stay behind on Navarro. He flies off with Grogu, and that sets up for the second season, which I'm going to get into, of course. But the biggest thing that this episode did, and I still lose my mind every time I see it, when Gideon uses the Darksaber to get out of his tie. The fact that Gideon has the Darksaber to this day makes me question how the fuck he got it, because I still don't know how exactly he got it. We know from future seasons and whatnot that at one point he was able to win it from Bo-Katan. I'm like, I want to see that, you know? We are watching a TV show. In any kind of TV show or movie, there's a rule: show, don't tell. I want to be shown how the fuck he won the Darksaber from Bo-Katan, because there's still a gap between in Rebels when Bo-Katan gets the Darksaber from Sabine and now. I need an explanation. I want to see it. I don't want to hear it because it's like exposition. Like, I hate it. I hate the fact that I didn't see this, because at least we got a flashback for the Night of 1,000 Tears in terms of what happened to Mandalore, but I want to see essentially how did Bo-Katan and Sabine and other Mandalorians survive that entire encounter, because if Mandalore is gone, how did all these Mandalorians that we see around the galaxy that we see in Season 3 still survive? I'd like an explanation for that. Maybe the movie can dive into that, but we'll see about that. But anyway, that finishes Season 1 of The Mandalorian. It sets up Season 2 very well, and I definitely enjoy Season 2 a lot more than Season 1. And yeah, overall, I think Season 1 is fun, it's enjoyable. There's not much to it though. On rewatch, it's worse than I initially thought. When I watched the show for the first time, the first season for the first time, I really enjoyed it. But on rewatch, it's like, okay, there's honestly not a lot to it. And I have so many issues here and there where I feel it's just filler for the sake of filler. And I feel these are smart writers. They should know how to do better. Because with only 8 episodes, it feels like a very short season. Especially if you consider some of the episodes are less than half an hour long. Like, you should be able to do better, considering that, you know, with the Clone Wars, with Rebels, they were able to give us 20 episodes a season of 20 minutes. Those seasons were just longer. Now, sure, there was some filler here and there, but only here and there. There was still plenty of episodes that did a very good job at, you know, being good solid episodes that carried the plot forward. And even some of the more filler-like episodes did a better job, I feel, at character development, because at the end of the season, upon rewatch, I don't think Din is all that interesting of a character, if I'm being honest. I feel Grogu is more interesting, Quill, Cara Dune, Greef Karga, and he essentially needs all those characters to make him more interesting than he actually is. So, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Season 1 of The Mandalorian. I think it had a couple of very good episodes, and well, I talked about that in my reviews up until this point. If you've missed those, you should go back to see what I thought about every single episode. But yeah, overall, I think Season 1 of The Mandalorian is fun, enjoyable, and that's about the extent of it. And I don't have a whole lot else to say. I think Andor is infinitely superior to The Mandalorian. Like, it's not even close. But, you know, that's my opinion. I wonder, of course, now, what's your opinion? What do you think of it? Do you agree with me, or do you very much disagree? Please let me know your thoughts and opinions on Season 1 and this episode of The Mandalorian in the comments below. So now that I've finished my reviews for Season 1 of The Mandalorian, I feel like next week I'm gonna just take a break from reviews, and then the week after I'll continue with Season 2. So stay tuned for that. I will, of course, try to finish my build of the UCS Venator. I'm not entirely sure when I'm gonna be able to do that, but that will be one of these days, so stay tuned for it. It's been a very enjoyable build, and I can't wait to see how it looks when I'm finished with it. So stay tuned for that. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to my channel for more Star Wars content, and of course, until my next video, may the Force be with you.